Who would have thought one photo shoot could shake the world fashion industry? But that's exactly what happened when Jungkook came up with a visual that left even the most senior fashion experts speechless. Not just because she showed off a new side of herself, but because this shoot feels like a historical moment, a new chapter in the relationship between K-pop, luxury fashion, and global aesthetics. The fashion world isn't just looking at pop stars posing. The world is witnessing a revolution packed in black and white photographs, denim fabrics, and eye gazes that break all boundaries of idle imagery. In a low-light studio, with an international creative team behind the camera, Jungkook delivers an aura never before seen, no longer just a Calvin Klein representation, but a universal icon of modern masculinity. Each portrait feels like a statement that the South Korean star no longer represents just music, but a new definition of global appeal. The reaction exploded. Not only from fans, but also from analysts, photographers, designers, to creative directors of big brands who suddenly took part in dissecting what Jungkook had just done. So, why is this photo shoot called a game changer by the world's fashion experts? Let's dissect it honestly and deeply in the style of a casual entertainment documentary, but full of layers of meaning, because the story behind these photos is so much bigger than just pose and light. Behind every flash of the camera, there is a narrative built with precision, and Jungkook seems to know it well. In his latest photo shoot, he is not selling a product, but is forming a new idea of how modern men express themselves. The viral photos show a more minimalist but complex side of Jungkook. There are no superfluous accessories, no glamorous setting, only the body, fabrics, and expressions speak. It is this form of visual communication that shifts the paradigm from selling style to selling honesty. According to one of the fashion experts from New York, this photo shoot not only shows clothes, but deconstructs the concept of masculinity. Amid global trends that are becoming saturated with hyper-masculine or overly conceptual visuals, Jungkook emerged as a representation of balance. It displays strength without rigidity, sensuality without exploitation, and poise without loss of appeal. Experts refer to this as the Jungkook formula, a combination of self-control and spontaneity that is hard to find in the modern fashion industry. Interestingly, this style of shooting also reflects the transitional direction of the global fashion industry. Big brands are now looking for figures who can not only sell, but can instill a new identity in the brand itself. Jungkook does not stand in the shadow of Calvin Klein. On the contrary, it is Calvin Klein who adjusts the tone of his communication to Jungkook's energy. Here is clearly seen a major change in the pattern of international branding. When the star of Asian origin is no longer seen as a representative of the Eastern market, but as a new center of gravity for global tastes. When fashion photographers talk about visual impact, they usually mean lighting, composition, and style. But Jungkook's photo shoot adds one new element: philosophy. Each portrait feels like the result of an afterthought about the meaning of the body, identity, and tranquility. His calm but intense pose, a gaze that didn't beg for attention but demanded appreciation, all felt very deliberate. In a fashion world filled with visual noise, Jungkook creates silence that is precisely the loudest speaking. This is the art of paradox. When all are competing to be conspicuous, Jungkook wins attention through calmness. Many call it the art of controlled vulnerability. He opened up a side of himself without losing control. This explains why the public does not see these photographs as merely sensual, but also spiritual, as if there is a layer of meaning that can only be understood through sensitivity. In interviews with several creative directors who reviewed this shooting, one recurring conclusion came: she is not trying to be something, she is already something. This philosophy is rarely found in commercial photo shoots, especially in an era when celebrities are often directed strictly by the brand team. However, this project is clearly different. Jungkook is given complete freedom to express himself, and the result is not just an advertisement, but an authentic self-representation. This is proof that in a fast-paced world, authenticity is still the highest value. It is undeniable that Korea's influence on the fashion industry is now reaching a peak. However, Jungkook took that influence to a higher level. If previously K-pop was considered only borrowing elements of Western fashion, this time the opposite happened. The West learned from Korean aesthetics. In this shoot, the selection of tones, textures, and poses is no longer centered on a Hollywood or European aesthetic, but rather on an Asian sensibility that accentuates harmony and detail. Fashion experts refer to this as visual diplomacy, a subtle way to introduce a new point of view about global beauty. Jungkook, unwittingly, has become the face of effective cultural diplomacy, not through speeches or formal campaigns, but through images circulating around the world. The effect has been incredible. Since the photos were released, searches for the word Calvin Klein Jungkook jumped by 400% in the United States, while in Paris and Milan, top fashion magazines ranked the visuals as examples of cross-cultural narrative design. The fashion world is now recognizing that trend direction is no longer just coming from New York or Paris, but also from Seoul, and Jungkook is the epitome of that. As soon as the photos were released, the impact was immediately felt like a tidal wave. Fans around the world make it a trending topic in minutes. But even more interesting is precisely how industry leaders react. Some luxury brand CEOs even openly mention that Jungkook's photo shoot is a new reference in understanding the global male appeal. Many brands are reviewing their marketing approaches, from the use of models to how to define male sensuality. Not a few dare to admit that this campaign made them aware. Fashion is no longer about clothes, but about energy. This reaction also shows how the power of social media and pop culture is now fused with the business of high fashion. Jungkook manages to elegantly bridge those two worlds, bringing artistic depth into the commercial space without losing relevance. Even some of the editors of the famous magazine think that this photo shoot can be equated with legendary works such as the Calvin Klein campaign of the 90 Seconds with Mark Wahlberg and Kate Moss, but with a more modern and inclusive context, which makes experts call this shoot a game changer, not only because of the visual impact, but because of the chain effect it causes. After its release, many other brands began to adapt similar strategies, reducing the use of digital filters, highlighting the authenticity of expression, and putting forward personal narratives instead of rigid marketing concepts. Jungkook unknowingly became a symbol of a major trend shift from the era of image perfection to authentic imperfection. In fact, in the weeks after the photos went viral, there was an increase in demand for fashion collaborations that raised the concept of real human texture. The world of fashion again remembers its initial essence, man. Jungkook doesn't just beautify clothes, but liven them up. He made people believe that fashion is not to hide, but to express. In the end, this photo shoot is not just about Jungkook or Calvin Klein. It is about how one figure can change the course of an industry with just an honest and visionary presence. The fashion world, which is usually difficult to change, this time is subject to authenticity. And amid the sparkle of studio lights, Jungkook stands not as a model, but as a new definition of the meaning of the word icon. There are things that can't be managed by the director, can't be danced by the creative team, and can't be manipulated by the camera that's called presence. Jungkook has it in a rare degree. In her latest photo shoot, before she even made a move, that energy was already filling the room. Some of the staff in attendance described the atmosphere of the shoot as weird but mesmerizing, not crowded but full of vibes. He didn't say much, but every gesture of his body seemed to carry a long story that didn't need to be told. That's where the real power comes in. Not in accessories or clothing, but in full awareness of the body and space. London-based fashion expert Claire Donovan cites Jungkook as an example of embodied confidence, a sense of confidence that is not artificial, but grows out of harmony between mind, body, and emotions. This aura cannot be learned through ordinary modeling training. It is formed from a career journey, pressure, persistence, and deep introspection. When the world praised Jungkook's photographs, they were staring at a reflection of someone who had gone through so many phases to understand who he was. Every muscle fold, every look in the eye, it all feels authentic because it's not trying to impress anyone. That's what makes her different from other celebrities. In a world full of imagery, Jungkook becomes an electrifying paradox. He attracts attention precisely because he doesn't try to attract attention. Furthermore, this aura has a significant visual impact on the fashion world. Photographers refer to it as silent magnetism, a silent attraction that makes it difficult for people to look away. In visual psychology, this phenomenon occurs when the subject is able to display micro-emotions balanced between strength and vulnerability. And in Jungkook's case, that balance comes naturally. His gaze was not defiant, but also not submissive. Her smile is barely noticeable, but leaves a deep impression. This is the kind of expression that makes a photograph come to life even without words. When examined from an art perspective, Jungkook's poses in the photo shoot resemble classic paintings' calm compositions, but full of inner narratives. No wonder some art curators in Seoul and Paris refer to this project as the new human portrait, a fusion of fashion and existentialism. He not only sells imagery, but raises the question, what does it mean to be yourself in this era of all active cameras? The explosive power of this photo shoot comes not only from the visuals, but from how the public translates it. When Jungkook's photos were released, the virtual world immediately split in thousands of interpretations. Some see it as a form of freedom. Others consider it a symbol of transition to artistic maturity. And not a few call it a form of resistance to conventional standards of beauty. Everyone seems to have their own interpretation. And here lies the genius of this project. It does not give a definite answer, but opens up a wide space for interpretation. In visual communication theory, this kind of thing is called open narrative imagery, images that do not direct, but invite the viewer's participation. Jungkook did not command people to be amazed, but made them want to understand. This phenomenon is rare in the modern fashion world, where messages are usually tightly controlled by PR and marketing teams. However, Jungkook's photographs reject that approach. They are like works of art that live outside their commercial context. Within 2 weeks of its release, hashtags related to the photo shoot generated more than 1.2 million unique discussions on platform X, Twitter, and more than half of them discussed the meaning behind Jungkook's expression, not his product. That is, the public already does not see this as advertising, but rather a cultural work. Interestingly, from the technical side, this shooting is also very innovative. The production team used a combination of natural lighting and reflective shadows to create a breathing contrast effect, a contrast that feels alive, not static. This technique is typically used in museum-grade editorial photo shoots, rather than commercial advertisements. But here comes the genius of Calvin Klein and their creative team. They knew that Jungkook had facial expressions that could tell the light, so they decided to let the lighting speak along with his expression. Each change in direction of Jungkook's gaze produced a different emotional tone, and the end result created a series of photos that seemed to pulsate. Visual analysts call this a form of organic storytelling, a narrative that grows out of the natural interaction between subject and space. No wonder many fashion magazines call this photo shoot a new milestone of minimalistic advertising that contains a maximum of emotions. What makes this shoot even more historic is Jungkook's transition from idol to universal symbol. In the world of entertainment, there are many celebrities who are trying to cross over into the world of fashion, but only a few are really changing the game. Jungkook is one of those rare ones. For many years, he was known for the image of the golden maknae, a young, energetic, versatile figure. But here, he took off all those layers. No choreography, no flashy colors, no background music, only himself in the most human form. That is why many experts call this photo shoot a rebirth moment. He is no longer performing as Jungkook of BTS, but Jungkook as an individual entity with his own artistic power and philosophy. In the analysis notes of Vogue Business magazine, this transition became a perfect example of how an artist can build a second identity without losing his fans. He does not run away from his past, but reinterprets it. This is what makes his career even longer and more relevant, even when trends change rapidly. More than just personal branding, this moment is also a case study of a paradigm shift in the global celebrity world. In the past, an artist's identity was shaped by a label or agency. Now, artists like Jungkook are precisely shaping the brand narrative. He is no longer the face of the campaign, but the co-creator in the creative process. Many visual communication experts consider that this collaboration model will become the new standard of the fashion industry. In other words, future pop stars don't just appear in front of the camera, they co-write the story behind it. Jungkook has proven that perfectly.